with a truckload of bootleg beer.
You're crazy, you know that? Yeah, you know that.
If there is one movie from the 70s that you could claim was iconic, it would be Smokey and the Bandit. Burt Reynolds' acting paired with Hal Needham's directing makes this film an absolute knockout. This movie was even the second highest-grossing movie, right behind Star Wars. From the real inspiration of this movie to the crazy stunts, this movie is an absolutely wild ride from start to finish. Make sure to stick to the end of the video for the bonus fact as well. Number 10. The original inspiration. Of course, in true Burt Reynolds fashion, the inspiration for this movie came from an incident that he had personally experienced. And in even truer Burt Reynolds style, this story is just as crazy as the others. While Burt was shooting Gator, Needham had brought several cases of Coors beer to Georgia from California to be consumed, but the maid kept stealing them, as they were illegal in the state of Georgia due to some federal regulations. This gave Reynolds the idea to make a film where the entire point of the protagonist was trying to ship illegal Coors beers across state borders. Number 9. The original screenplay. The original screenplay for the movie was actually much more different in comparison to the one we see on the TV screen today. Many of the original characters and cast of the movie had different names compared to what they were initially cast with. For example, Bandit actually had a last name called LaRue. Carrie was actually named Kate, and the reward that was originally planned for Bandit after making a successful run was a new truck, not the iconic $80,000 we see him fighting for. The initial draft of the script had many different variations of this one idea and tried different angles before settling on the one we know and love today. Number 8. Ad-libbing all the way. If there is one character in this movie that is able to compete with the popularity and infamy of Bandit, it's probably the sheriff of the movie, Buford T. Justice.
All right, now you boys just stay here and watch the car. There might be some vandals around who want to steal something.
Buford, played by Jackie Gleason, is tasked with chasing down Bandit and the illegal cargo through the entire movie, and he sure does give them a run for their money. But what's crazy about this character is that Jackie nearly ad-libbed the entire role. Jackie never used a script, and even if one was written out for him, he would never use it because he felt he could do a way better job without one than with one. Number 7. It's all fake. Now, if you're a fan of the movie, there is no way that you wouldn't remember Smokey, the iconic black and gold pinstripe Pontiac Trans Am. This car was once and still is the dream car of many people across the globe. And it is this movie that popularized this vehicle. Many people remember this vehicle's iconic roar in the movie as Bandit maneuvers it around and revs its engine. But what's crazy is that the Trans Am never sounded like that, and its engine noise was amplified using a heavily modified 1955 Chevy that starred in movies like American Graffiti. If you're someone who bought this car and realized this later, we feel for you. All of us were surprised to find out that the iconic Trans Am never actually sounded that aggressive. Number 6. One of 4. While the roar of the Trans Am may have never been real, all of the carnage we saw on the screen sure was. The film does a lot of crazy stunts with Smokey, but what most people don't realize is that there were actually 4 Smokies in total. You heard that right. Needham realized that he wouldn't be able to complete this movie with one Trans Am alone and ended up ordering 4 custom-painted Trans Ams just to be sure. What's crazy is that out of all these 4 Trans Ams, only one survived to tell the tale. One of the Trans Ams only lasted one scene, the epic bridge jump scene, after which it got completely totaled. Are you enjoying the video so far? Before we head into the top 5 facts about Smokey and the Bandit, make sure to drop a like. Now on with the show. Number 5. Hitchcock. Now, Smokey and the Bandit may not be a Christopher Nolan masterpiece or a Martin Scorsese piece of art, but it sure was enjoyed by people of all ages from all walks of life. But if you think great artists like Nolan and Scorsese may not watch such movies, what you're about to hear will surely change your mind. Patricia Hitchcock, the daughter of Alfred Hitchcock, said that Smokey and the Bandit was her father's guilty pleasure, his go-to to unwind and relax. If Smokey and the Bandit can be enjoyed by one of the greatest directors of all time, then you can be proud to say that this movie is your favorite. Number 4. Forever and Always. Most people hate the idea of working with their spouse because they are scared of mixing their personal life with their professional life. But when it came to Burt Reynolds, he seemed to have no problem doing so. Sally Field, who is in this movie and acts as the romantic interest of the Bandit, acts as Burt Reynolds' girlfriend in every movie that they made together. Sally and Burt have also acted as inseparable partners in crime in movies like the sequel to Smokey and the Bandit and Hooper. Although Burt and Sally never did end up getting married, the chemistry the two shared on the screen was rather memorable. Number 3. Directorial debut. Believe it or not, Smokey and the Bandit was actually Hal Needham's directorial debut. You heard that right? The second most successful movie of 1977 was directed by someone who had no prior experience directing. Hal, who had been stuck as a stuntman up until that year, began writing a screenplay, which would eventually evolve into Smokey and the Bandit after his friend Burt Reynolds handed him the idea of a bootlegger shipping Coors beer across state lines. Who knew that this idea would launch Needham into absolute stardom? Number 2. Free advertising. Nowadays, brands often pay in millions to movie studios for a chance for their product to be featured in the next blockbuster movie, which is being shot so that the crowds who go to see the movie will see their product and go buy it after seeing the protagonist or antagonist endorse it in the movie. But Pontiac never paid a single dime to Smokey and the Bandit and ended up getting the largest sales boost of their life. It was reported that the sales of the Trans Am model of Pontiac's automobiles ended up skyrocketing, with sales going from 68,745 in 1977 to 93,341 in 1978. I'm pretty sure that Pontiac had never received such free positive press in their entire history. Number 1. A gamble. If you were offered the choice between taking home a percentage of profit versus a large amount of money, you would probably go for the money, right? Well, that's exactly what Jackie Gleason did, and he ended up losing out on millions of dollars because of this one decision. Jackie was offered a decision by Needham after the wrapping up of the production to either opt for a one-time large sum payment or to take home a percentage from the profits of the movie. Jackie ended up opting for the salary, which cost him millions, as it was the most commercially successful movie of the year, second only to Star Wars. Bonus fact: the theme song. The theme song for the movie, played by Jerry Reed himself, was composed by him in just a day. Both the lyrics and tune of the song were penned by Reed himself, who acts as Cletus in the movie. Cletus initially thought Needham hated the song, but when he offered to change it, Needham said that he would kill Jerry if he even changed one word. It is a story of gruesome body horror, terrifying monsters, and cruel experimentation. Young Frankenstein is all of that, but portrayed in the funniest possible manner. From the inspiration it provided to the band Aerosmith to the original props of Frankenstein being used, here are some crazy facts about the movie Young Frankenstein. Stick around to the end of the video for the extra bonus fact as well. Number 10. Feldman for Igor. Apart from the main character of the movie, perhaps one of the most iconic roles in the entire movie is played by Marty Feldman, the famous British comedian who is known for his protruding, misaligned eyes. One might think Feldman was insecure about his eyes, but Feldman used his eyes to his very advantage. It is Feldman's physical appearance that made Gene Wilder and Brooks write the role of Igor with him specifically in mind. Feldman read the script and realized that it was something that was right up his alley, so he ended up accepting. Number 9. Using props from the original Frankenstein. Young Frankenstein is known for being a film that's not just funny. It is a masterpiece in writing, direction, and editing. But when you watch the film, you might feel that it's from a bygone era. But you wouldn't be wrong to feel that way because many of the props were from the original film. Many of the original props from the 1931 Frankenstein were reused in this film, and because of that, the film ended up looking much older, giving it a vintage feel. Number 8. Stay Out of the Way. Gene Wilder is perhaps one of the best matches for the directorial vision of Mel Brooks. But even so, Gene Wilder had only one request for Mel Brooks if he was to star in this film, and that is, he wanted Mel to not come on screen. Mel had a habit of acting in the movies he directed, and often broke the fourth wall in some manner, which Gene thought was mildly annoying. So Gene had asked Mel to stay behind the camera for this movie, and stay he did. Number 7. Igor inspired Aerosmith. You heard that right. Igor, played by Marty Feldman, ended up saying a line so iconic that it inspired Axl Rose, the lead singer of one of the biggest rock bands in the world, Aerosmith, to write one of their biggest hits. In the movie, there is a scene in which Igor points with his finger and says,
"Walk this way. This way."
which is an old joke that has been repeated since the vaudeville era. But Aerosmith, who had taken a break from recording and went to see the movie, saw this line and was inspired to make the song Walk This Way. Although arguably Aerosmith's Walk This Way has nothing to do with Frankenstein or monsters. Number 6. From Oscars to Parodies. Young Frankenstein, although a comedy film, had a star-studded cast. With Gene Wilder fresh off his iconic role as Willy Wonka from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Peter Boyle, who was trailblazing through the 70s. But there's one talent on the set that was there not for the money, but purely for the love of it. Gene Hackman was fresh off his Oscar win and wanted to have a change of scenery. As such, he had agreed to a request from one of his friends to act in Young Frankenstein. This is how he ended up playing the blind hermit, delivering the iconic "I was gonna make espresso" line.
I was gonna make espresso.
Are you enjoying the video so far? Before we head into the top 5 facts about Young Frankenstein, make sure to drop a like. Now on with the show. Number 5. The Switch. Believe it or not, 2 very crucial roles in Frankenstein would have been very different because these actors' roles were initially switched. Young Frankenstein had the opportunity to have both Terry Garr and Madeline Kahn in the film, but originally it was intended that Garr would play the role of Elizabeth and Kahn would play the role of Inga. But the actresses then later decided that they were both suited to play each other's roles instead, and ended up switching finally. Just imagine how different the dynamic would have been if they had gone with the original casting. Number 4. Several takes. Now, Gene Wilder had worked previously with Mel Brooks for several films. In fact, the idea for Young Frankenstein was proposed by Wilder while the duo were shooting Blazing Saddles. But Gene did not know what he was in for with Mel at the helm of a comedy film. Wilder ended up finding the entire process hilarious and required several takes to just get a few lines correct. Wilder was not used to shooting comedy and found himself stumbling over his words because of how funny it was. Some scenes were even shot nearly a dozen times. Number 3. The power of editing. Now, we all know just how important editing is. It is one of the cornerstones of the movie, and it's not something that began with the digital age. Editing existed when film was shot on tape as well, albeit not as advanced as today's post-processing techniques. Even so, it is the power of editing that is credited for the movie actually being enjoyable. It is reported that initially the initial cut of Frankenstein was nearly twice as long as the final cut of the film. Wilder and Brooks watched the initial cut and believed that the movie would flop, but after hours of editing, the two finally believed that they had a film that was presentable to the public. This would mean that there's nearly an hour's worth of film that the world has actually not seen till now. Number 2. Commercially and critique Ellie. Young Frankenstein is one of the most iconic comedy films of all time. It's a must-watch for all those who call themselves fans of comedy films, and it is a masterclass in acting. When it was released, the movie was a success, not just commercially, but critically as well. Brooks was a big name in the 70s, and because of that, Young Frankenstein gained a lot of traction and brought in nearly $90 million on a budget of just $3 million. Additionally, the movie is rated a solid 94% on Rotten Tomatoes as of now. It's also been recognized as one of the best comedy films of all time by the American Film Institute. Number 1. Props to the creator. You remember how we talked about how Young Frankenstein ended up using the original props from the original 1931 horror movie, Frankenstein? Well, it wouldn't have been possible if not for the efforts of one person, Ken Strickfaden. Now, many of us may not know who Ken Strickfaden is, but he was actually the person who made the original electrical props for the 1931 Frankenstein film. And thankfully, when the movie was being made, Brooks discovered that Ken was actually still alive and living in LA where the movie was being shot. Mel wasn't even aware of who this person is because he was never credited in the original Frankenstein film. But thankfully, Ken got the justice he deserved and was finally credited in Young Frankenstein. Bonus fact: I see dead people. Now, if you thought that Young Frankenstein is just a joke through and through, you'd be wrong because there's actually a very ghastly fact about this film that no one realizes because it is hiding in plain sight. The scene where Frederick and Elizabeth move under the castle, there are many skulls on display. A common man would think that these skulls are props, but that's where you'd be wrong because those skulls are actually real. You heard that right. These skulls were from real people. Don't ask anyone how Brooks got his hands on these. When Jaws hit theaters in 1975, it didn't just make people afraid to go into the water. It changed cinema forever. It was the first true summer blockbuster, made Steven Spielberg a household name, and brought sharks into the nightmares of an entire generation. But behind the iconic score and blood-red waters lies a production so strange, chaotic, and full of accidents that the real story is almost too weird to believe. Sure, you have seen the shark. You know the score. Maybe you have even quoted the legendary line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." But do you know about the milk-filled swimming pool? Or how Spielberg skipped the film's explosive climax? Buckle up because these aren't just behind-the-scenes tidbits. They are proof that Jaws might be the most accidentally brilliant film ever made. Number 10. Spielberg was only 28. Steven Spielberg was just 28 years old when he directed Jaws. For a film that completely rewired the way Hollywood thought about summer releases, it is shocking to realize the man behind the camera was a young, relatively unproven director. Spielberg had done some TV work and directed a small film called The Sugar Land Express, which caught the eye of Universal. They handed him the Shark movie project, and what followed was one of the most grueling and creatively demanding shoots of the decade. This wasn't just a coming-of-age moment for Spielberg. It was a trial by salt water, and somehow he didn't sink. Number 9. "You're gonna need a bigger boat" was a crew joke. Even if you have never seen Jaws, chances are you know the line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." It is one of the most quoted lines in movie history. Yet it was not in the original script. Roy Scheider, who played Chief Brody, improvised it after hearing the crew say it on set all the time. The line began as a running joke among the production team. They were constantly frustrated with tight resources and would mutter whenever something went wrong. Scheider delivered it during a key scene, and Spielberg loved the spontaneity. Number 8. The crew nicknamed the film Flaws Shooting Jaws was a logistical nightmare. Spielberg insisted on filming on real ocean water instead of inside a controlled studio tank. That decision made every day unpredictable. Boats drifted into the frame. Salt water corroded equipment. The actors got seasick. And worst of all, the mechanical shark barely functioned. The crew sarcastically nicknamed the production Flaws because of the constant technical failures. The production ran over budget and over schedule. Tensions between cast members, especially Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw, created additional problems. Spielberg reportedly feared he had ruined his career, yet somehow all that chaos gave way to creativity. The director was forced to innovate and rethink scenes on the fly, and in doing so, made one of the most suspenseful films of all time. Number 7. The shark only appears for 4 minutes. For a movie about a killer shark, you barely see the creature. Jaws runs over 2 hours, but the shark appears for just 4 minutes. And that was not the original plan. The production team had built 3 full-sized mechanical sharks, expecting to showcase them throughout the film. But with constant breakdowns and technical malfunctions, Spielberg had to rely on indirect storytelling. This led to iconic choices like showing barrels pulled by the shark instead of the shark itself, and using ominous music to suggest its presence. This use of negative space, letting the viewer's imagination do the work, proved to be more terrifying than any rubber monster could have been. Number 6. The Ben Gardner head scene was shot in a swimming pool. One of the biggest jump scares in Jaws happens when Hooper finds Ben Gardner's boat and a severed head floats into view. Audiences screamed in theaters across the country. But that scene wasn't part of the original shoot. Spielberg decided to add it later after seeing how audiences reacted to other scares. Since the original set was no longer available, he filmed the head scene in editor Verna Field's backyard swimming pool. The crew filled the pool with milk to make the water murky, and the footage was seamlessly inserted into the film. A key moment in horror cinema came from a suburban pool on a shoestring budget. Enjoying these facts so far? Then hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dive breakdowns of legendary films. Now let's get back to the shark. Number 5. Spielberg skipped the shark's death scene. You would think a director would want to be present for the most explosive moment of their blockbuster. But Spielberg was not even on set when the shark exploded at the end of Jaws. Fearing a prank from the crew on the final day, he suspected they might throw him into the water, so he quietly left the island and flew back to Los Angeles. The crew filmed the dramatic shark explosion without him. That iconic shot of Brody blowing up the oxygen tank and sending the shark into bloody bits was completed without the director anywhere near the set. Spielberg found out later that they had pulled it off, and the footage ended up becoming one of the most famous moments in movie history. Number 4. Spielberg banned the color red, except for blood. Spielberg is a meticulous visual storyteller. He made a specific request to the art department during production: avoid the color red in costumes and set design. The goal was to make blood pop on screen, and it worked. If you watch the movie closely, you will notice a muted palette. Characters wear a lot of beige, blue, and green. The beach scenes are filled with soft tones. When red appears, it is almost always blood. This stylistic choice heightened the shock value of the shark attacks and made the violence stand out in an otherwise calm visual world. Spielberg did not want horror to be random. He wanted it to feel sharp, sudden, and unforgettable. Red was his secret weapon. Number 3. Robert Shaw gave the Indianapolis speech twice. Quint's monologue about the USS Indianapolis is one of the most haunting pieces of dialogue ever delivered in a film. But the version in the movie was not the first take. Robert Shaw, who played Quint, had a drinking problem. For the initial take of the monologue, he insisted on performing the scene while drunk, hoping it would add authenticity. The result was unusable. He slurred his lines and couldn't finish. The next day, sober and remorseful, he called Spielberg and asked for another chance. They reshot the monologue. This time, Shaw nailed it in 4 takes. The result was unforgettable. The speech gave the film emotional weight, contextualized the terror of the shark, and showcased Shaw's brilliance as a performer. Number 2. The shark's nickname was Bruce. The mechanical shark was named Bruce after Spielberg's lawyer. The crew gave the beast a nickname as a way of coping with its constant breakdowns. Bruce became a running joke and something of a mascot. Despite its troubles, Bruce became legendary. The name stuck. Fans still refer to the shark by that name, and it has appeared in parodies and tributes in other films. Pixar's Finding Nemo even features a great white shark named Bruce in its own nod to Jaws. What began as an inside joke turned into a pop culture Easter egg. Number 1. Spielberg. Thought the Jaws theme was a prank. John Williams' score for Jaws is one of the most iconic in cinema. Just 2 alternating notes, played on a tuba, managed to create unbearable suspense. When Williams first presented the theme to Spielberg, the director laughed. He thought it was a joke. 2 notes? That was it? Spielberg had expected something sweeping and complex, not this primal, repeating pulse. But Williams explained that simplicity was the point. The shark was primitive, relentless, and single-minded, so the music had to match. Spielberg quickly changed his tune, and the score became a crucial part of the film's power. The music filled the gaps when the shark was not on screen and made the unseen even more terrifying. Bonus fact: the shark roars like a dinosaur. Kind of. Here's a weird one you probably never noticed. The shark in Jaws has a death roar. That's right, when the shark explodes at the end of the film, the sound it makes is not water splashing or metal crunching, but an actual roar. It's not realistic, and it wasn't supposed to be. The sound designers took creative liberties by layering in animal noises to make the shark's death feel more cinematic and terrifying. Specifically, they repurposed a sound effect originally created for dinosaurs and large beasts in older Universal monster movies. Jaws is not just a masterpiece. It is a miracle of improvisation, invention, and sheer survival.
Why do you do this?
Because you had love in your hands, and you gave it up.
But they would have killed Wesley if I hadn't done it.
Although The Princess Bride is a story of romance and swashbuckling action for all ages, there are some secrets about this movie that make this movie more than what I've described. While some of these facts will surprise you like Inigo, the others will leave you surprised like Vizzini's intellect. From Fezzik's competitive alcohol capacity to Vizzini's ludicrous educational history, here are some crazy facts about The Princess Bride. Make sure to stick to the end for the bonus fact as well. Number 10. Who the novel was for. The novel is actually a heartfelt dedication to someone who the author, William Goldman, holds very dear to his heart. His daughters. William revealed that while looking for inspiration to write a novel, he decided that the next one would be dedicated to his daughters, who were 7 and 4 at the time. When he asked his daughters for an opinion on his decision, the first one said, "Princess," and the second one said, "Bride," from which the title of the bestseller comes. So if you thought The Princess Bride couldn't get any better than it already did, think again. Number 9. Andre's insane capacity. The movie is memorable for many things, from the iconic dialogue of Inigo and swashbuckling sword fights to the cutesy romance. The movie has everything. But there's one thing about this movie that is more amazing than anything else, and you'll never see it on screen. What are we talking about? It's Andre the Giant's capacity for alcohol. Andre the Giant could apparently down 3 bottles of cognac and 12 bottles of wine and still only feel a little tipsy at best. The second greatest thing in the film was his appetite, of course. He could eat for 10 men and still 10 more, apparently. Number 8. Diving into quicksand. If there's one thing this movie gets right, it's the stunt scenes. Although it's nowhere near as advanced as what Tom Cruise pulls off, it's infinitely more dangerous considering the safety technology at the time was horrible. One particular scene that was dangerous to film was the one where Wesley, played by Cary Elwes, dives headfirst to save Buttercup. The director suggested jumping feet first into the quicksand pit, but Elwes insisted that doing so would not be heroic. Elwes then jumped headfirst into the pit, which made that shot all the more memorable. Number 7. Lights out. Well, you might think jumping headfirst into a quicksand pit might be the height of dedication in this movie, but you'd be wrong because Cary Elwes literally volunteered to be knocked out for a scene. When Wesley discovers that Count Rugen is the six-fingered man, the script immediately directs for Wesley to get knocked out. But Christopher Guest, who played Rugen, was scared of hurting Elwes, which made the shot look unconvincing. Elwes suggested Rugen just go for it, and go for it he did. Rugen ended up hitting Elwes so hard with the butt of the sword that the actor ended up waking up in an emergency room. The shot was perfect, so we can't say Elwes' sacrifice was for nothing. Number 6. The Struggle. Most people don't know about this, but The Princess Bride was a movie that was many a director's dream to direct for years on end, but it kept getting thwarted due to one reason or another. As soon as the bestseller took off on the market, many a director tried to get the rights to direct the film but failed. Robert Redford, Norman Jewison, John Boorman, and Francois Truffaut had all tried to get the book adapted into a movie. But due to various reasons, like production houses shutting down and actors getting fired, the movie kept getting delayed. At one point, a then unknown Arnold Schwarzenegger was even cast to play Fezzik. We could have had a big muscled-up Fezzik instead of the gentle giant we know of today. Are you enjoying the video so far? Well, before we head into the top 5 facts about The Princess Bride, drop a like so we know you stuck around. Now on with the show.
I want to be wearing them in the future.
I just feared when you give me so much trouble.
Number 5. Vizzini's intellectual prowess. Vizzini the Sicilian, who is played by Wallace Shawn, wasn't just a genius because the script demanded it. He was an actual genius in real life. Vizzini's intellectual prowess wasn't just limited to films, but instead of quick, witty thinking, Wallace Shawn had several degrees from top institutes to show for it. Wallace had a history degree from Harvard and also studied philosophy and economics at Oxford. To just put his brains into perspective, he went to give a lecture on economics when the Princess Bride shooting was halted for a day. So if you had any doubt as to whether Vizzini, the man with dizzying intellect, had a similar intellect in real life, you'd be surprised to find out that the man who played the character was actually much smarter. Number 4. Miracle Max makes us laugh. Miracle Max, the man who resurrects the hero Wesley, is probably one of the most memorable characters in the movie. Not because of his extreme feats or any other mundane reason. It's because he was so very funny that a 5-minute scene ended up taking the crew 3 days to film because everyone was dying of laughter. Max, played by Billy Crystal, was instructed that he could improvise his lines for his scenes, which he did. What the cast did not expect was the fact that Billy had enough jokes to keep going on, and he never even repeated the same joke once. He almost always left the crew rolling in laughter, which is why the scene ended up taking longer to shoot than needed.
I promise I will not kill you until you reach the top.
That's very comforting, but I'm afraid you'll just have to wait.
I hate waiting.
Number 3. Fighting demons. Now, The Princess Bride might be a whimsical movie meant for all ages, but for Inigo Montoya, played by Mandy Patinkin, playing his character was not just an opportunity to show his acting prowess, but also to face his demons as well. Patinkin had lost his father to pancreatic cancer in 1972, and on reading the script for Inigo Montoya, he felt immensely moved and felt a personal connection with his character. He felt that if he could defeat the six-fingered man, it would be a symbolic victory for his victory over his dad's cancer. Although Inigo's dialogue when he meets Count Rugen has become a worldwide phenomenon, it had a much deeper and more personal meaning to him. Number 2. Roberts was real. Get ready to have your minds blown. In the movie The Princess Bride, the main character, named Wesley, goes off into the world to make his fortune so that he can marry his love, Buttercup. But news soon reaches Buttercup that Wesley was killed by a pirate named Dread Pirate Roberts, who is later to be revealed to be Wesley himself, who had actually bested the real Roberts. But what most people don't realize is that Pirate Roberts was actually a real Welsh pirate that lived in the 18th century and was active in the Caribbean. How crazy is that? Number 1. Cliffs of Insanity. One of the most impressive fight scenes in the entire movie is the fight that takes place between Wesley and Inigo. It is not just a masterpiece in writing, it is also a masterpiece in research. Goldman, the author of the novel, spent several months researching period-accurate sword fighting techniques. which is why all the techniques mentioned in the book are real. But what's even more amazing is that Elwes and Patinkin actually took the time and effort to learn to fence with one another, till their portrayal of the fight was accurate down to the very last dot. Bonus fact: the alternate ending. Many people don't know this, but the original ending to The Princess Bride was a little different than what we know. In the original, the grandfather finishes narrating the story to the grandson, and he goes to sleep. But in the alternate wedding, the boy goes to the window of his bedroom and sees Wesley, Fezzik, Inigo, and Buttercup on their white horses. Some films sneak up on you. Others explode into pop culture with all the subtlety of a flaming arrow through a tavern door. Forget everything you think you know about Robin Hood. From behind-the-scenes chaos to shocking cameos that never happened, deep into the spandex-laced legacy of Robin Hood, Men in Tights. Stick around. Fact number 3, and the bonus fact will leave you howling. Fact number 10. The movie made Gene Siskel's Worst of 93 list. It's hard to believe now, but Men in Tights didn't exactly shoot a bullseye with critics when it first came out. Legendary film critic Gene Siskel slammed the movie, even putting it on his list of worst films of 1993. He felt Mel Brooks had lost his comedic touch and said the film felt outdated, like it had missed the moment. But over time, Men in Tights found its revenge, not with a bow, but with longevity. Cult fans rallied, quotes became legendary, and younger generations discovered it through VHS, DVD, and eventually streaming. Critics may have frowned, but fans tightened their belts and never let go. Fact number 9. Richard Lewis was burning up, literally. Prince John, played hilariously by Richard Lewis, almost didn't finish his scenes. Why? Because near the end of filming, Lewis was hit with a brutal case of hepatitis A and ran a fever of 106 degrees. He was hospitalized, teetering on the edge. But that didn't stop Mel Brooks. The director actually phoned Lewis in the hospital and tried to coax him back to the set on a stretcher. That's right. Mel wanted to wheel him in, shoot his final lines propped against a plank of wood, and whisk him back to the hospital. Lewis refused, barely able to speak. But it's a testament to the comedic chaos and show-must-go-on spirit that drove the production. Fact number 8. Swordplay was serious business. Sure, it was a spoof, but the sword fighting? Deadly serious. Every weekend during the shoot, the cast trained in fencing boot camps. These weren't casual workshops. They were full-blown sessions with stunt expert Victor Paul, a man who'd worked on Die Hard and Armageddon. Cary Elwes, having already wielded a blade in The Princess Bride, was a natural. The only thing that didn't come as easily? Archery. During one memorable scene, Elwes had just 3 takes to hit a bullseye. Under Mel Brooks's intense pressure, he nailed it on the 3rd shot, earning cheers from the crew and relief for his nerves. Fact number 7. Filmed where Robin Hood has always lived. You can't spoof Robin Hood without giving a nod to its roots. Some scenes were filmed at Lake Sherwood in Southern California, a place that earned its name from a 1921 Robin Hood film. This scenic body of water was also a filming location for The Adventures of Robin Hood in 1938. For Men in Tights, it wasn't just a pretty backdrop. It was sacred parody ground, linking 3 generations of Robin Hood films in one single location. Fact number 6. Cary Elwes thought Mel Brooks was a prank caller. Imagine picking up your home phone in the 90s and hearing, "Hi, this is Mel Brooks." Cary Elwes did exactly that and hung up. Thinking it was a prank, he slammed the receiver down. But Mel called back, more serious this time, and finally convinced Elwes it was really him. The rest is history. Elwes got Robin's role and helped cast his sidekick, Achu. Together, he and Brooks discovered a young, sharp-witted comedian who'd go on to become a cultural titan, Dave Chappelle. If you're enjoying these wild behind-the-scenes facts, go ahead and drop a like. Fact number 5. Mel Brooks wrote every original song. The music in Men in Tights isn't just catchy, it's pure Mel Brooks. From the title theme to Marion's romantic ballads and the Sherwood Forest rap, Brooks wrote every lyric himself. The man was a comedic genius with a musical ear, and while composer Hummy Man crafted the melodies, Brooks provided the lyrical madness. The only exception? "The night is young and you're so beautiful," which Robin croons to Marion. That one's a classic from 1937, proof that even in parody, Brooks knew when to borrow something perfect. Fact number 4, Sean Connery wanted to reprise his role in drag. In Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Sean Connery made a regal cameo as King Richard. Inspired by the spoof, he reportedly offered to reprise the role for Men in Tights. There was just one condition: he wanted to play Richard in full drag. You heard that right? Connery, the former Bond, in a dress and tiara. Mel Brooks loved the idea, but Connery asked for $1 million paycheck to be donated to Scottish charities. The budget couldn't stretch that far, so the role went to Patrick Stewart. And the cross-dressing king? Sadly, never happened. Fact number 3, Madeline Kahn might have been Latrine. The role of Latrine, the bizarre and over-the-top soothsayer, almost became a comedy legend. Madeline Kahn, Brooks's frequent collaborator, was considered for the role. Some say she turned it down over money. Others say Brooks decided not to cast her due to the part's limited screen time. Either way, the role landed with Tracy Ullman, who absolutely devoured the part. But just imagine Madeline Kahn cackling over her poisonous herbs and brandy. Now that's an alternate timeline worth exploring. Fact number 2, a dentist's kid inspired the whole movie. Sometimes great ideas come from unexpected places. In this case, it was an 11-year-old kid named Geordie Chandler. After watching Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, he told his father the movie needed to be spoofed. That dad happened to be Evan Chandler, a Beverly Hills dentist with Hollywood clients. One of those clients? Screenwriter J. David Shapiro. Over a cleaning session, the dentist pitched the idea of a Robin Hood parody. Shapiro loved it. He and Chandler wrote a script which eventually landed in Mel Brooks's lap, and the rest is cinematic history. Fact number 1, Brooks had already tried a Robin Hood spoof, and it failed. Back in the 70s, Mel Brooks made his first attempt at a Robin Hood parody. It was a short-lived TV show called When Things Were Rotten, packed with gags and absurd humor, but it bombed. Canceled after just 13 episodes, it faded into obscurity. Still, Brooks couldn't let the idea go. Nearly 2 decades later, he returned to Sherwood Forest with new jokes, new actors, and tighter tights. And here's the kicker. Dick Van Patten, who played Friar Tuck in that failed show, got a second chance, this time as the abbot in Men in Tights. Bonus fact, Jack Black serenaded Mel Brooks in full tights. At the 2009 Kennedy Center Honors, Mel Brooks received a tribute worthy of his comedic legacy. But the highlight? A full-on serenade from Jack Black. Dressed as Robin Hood, belting the Men in Tights theme song. In front of President Obama and a star-studded crowd, Black led a chorus of tights-clad performers in a tribute that brought Brooks to tears and laughter. From spoof to stage, Men in Tights had officially earned its place in comedy history. So next time you watch Robin Hood, Men in Tights, remember, behind every arrow, rap verse, and wild dance sequence lies a story even stranger than fiction. From fevers to fencing, prank calls to musical numbers, Mel Brooks's parody masterpiece was more than a comedy. It was a chaotic labor of love, stitched together with tights, genius, and just a dash of madness. If you love these weird facts and want more untold stories behind your favorite cult films, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Got a favorite Men in Tights moment? Or a bizarre behind-the-scenes rumor we missed? Drop it in the comments. We might just feature it in our next episode. Until then, stay tight, stay weird, and keep laughing.